one of the videos you made recently that has nothing to do with politics, really, was one saying there are ways that non-religious people and Christians can work together to promote a sense of unity. And you said the reaction you got to that was actually kind of surprising. Can you talk about
Yeah.
that?
Well, every time I post about unity, my audience tends to drop off a little bit. That happened. It happened probably about, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months ago, something like that. I posted a video about tolerating. Because somebody had asked me, should we tolerate these bad beliefs? And even if they're not hurting someone, they're still believing something, and that's wrong. Should we tolerate that, or should we try to change it? So I kind of made a video that was a little bit of a different tone because I have kind of shifted a lot in how I see things. I no longer have this desire to like make everybody, question their religion and walk away from it, eradicate, these beliefs, because I don't think it's productive. I think it's more productive to recognize that atheists or non-believers will always exist, Christians will always exist. And so if we want a better future, we have to figure out how to work together. Like, it's really our only option. And people didn't really like that either. They a lot of people, especially who are still walking away, kind of tied up in the trauma and haven't done a lot of healing work, can be very reactive to that and very defensive, and rightfully so. I was like that for a long time too, where I was like, no, these people hold beliefs that hurt people and marginalize people, and
Right.
we need to call it out. But I have a much more nuanced, open view these days, where I recognize that even the psychology of belief is very complex. So it's really more about like just being smarter, more productive, more creative in how you navigate these issues. But when I posted that, and I actually thought that it would get a really good response. It's always the opposite of what I think, but I really didn't expect it to get so much pushback. But I realized that people, and I am too, are seeing this rise of Christian nationalism and how it has just gripped our administration. And they're like, no, this is the enemy. And though I think that it can be in a lot of spaces, I also recognize that the Christian church has a history of standing up for the separation of church and state. They have a history of fighting for civil rights. They're not the whole church, but there
Right.
are denominations. There are, in history, the church hasn't always been one singular oppressive force.
Right.
There are all kinds of denominations and churches, and they exist on a spectrum. And so what I hope to do is to tap into those places where they're not so Christian nationalist, but they're people who just have good hearts, a good community. They go to church because they like it and it makes them feel nice. They probably don't read the Bible that much or even know half of what's in it. And I'm not going to go
Hey,
tell
just like
them,
the devout.
yeah, yeah. And I'm not going to go tell them like, hey, stop being Christian and wake up.
Right.
I'm just going to say, hey, are do you want freedom? Do you want a good future? Can we find a way to work together? And do you think it's wrong what they're doing? Can we maybe find some common shared values of freedom, democracy, life, liberty, happiness, the most basic things, and work toward that? And we don't have to agree on everything else at the end,
Right.
but this is a thing where I think we need as many people in the resistance as possible, and alienating half the country, or however many people are Christians, is probably not the way to go. And it sucks, and a lot of people don't want to hear that because they're like, that's my enemy. But I'm not trying to think of like what's nice or righteous. I'm just trying to think of what is productive. How are we going to get the numbers we need? The churches already have their history, they have the community, they have the infrastructure, and they have their values, right? They have their love your neighbor, welcome the immigrant values. Let's tap into that and get them to remember what they stand for, because I believe that if they do, and they have a realistic idea of what's happening all around them in the world, that we could come together and we could fight this.
In some
um
ways, there is this enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of thing. But
yeah.
one thing, I've talked about this a little bit on my channel, but one of the things I've noticed over the past 10, 20 years is it used to be if atheists were fighting church state separation lawsuits, the handful of groups that do that sort of thing, they would kind of be on their own because no one wants to work with them. They're pariahs in
Mhm.
that sense. And what has changed is because Christian nationalism doesn't just threaten atheists, it threatens non-Christians. It threatens Christians who are not the right type of Christians.
Yep.
There's actually a lot more collaboration, like literally on
Mhm.
lawsuits. Who are the plaintiffs challenging the government when it comes to some of these things? When it comes to abortion rights and things like that. It's never just the church-state separation crowd. It's the church-state separation crowd and the Jews who are
Mhm.
pro-choice, and the Hindus and the Sikhs and the Christian pro-choice community, or whoever it is.
Mhm.
And they say, like, who are the plaintiffs for these cases? Yes, there might be an atheist parent who says, I don't want religion in my school, but there's also a pastor who says, I don't believe the school is the place to have my religion taught to children. And it's
Mhm.
those collaborations that show, look, we disagree on a lot of stuff when we're having beers over drinks, when we're having drinks later on. But on this issue, we are all united. And that stuff makes a difference. And this is maybe the hard thing when you're progressive, which is we have such a big tent that there is such a wide array of opinions on so many things.
Mhm.
And I feel like you have a much more homogenous group on the right who are willing to go along with whatever people say. And it's a lot harder to bring people together when you're under this big tent. I mean, I think AOC has said this before. In any other country, someone like her, someone like Joe Biden, some of the other Democrats would be in completely different parties. In the
Mhm.
US, they're all lumped together, whereas
One
the
umbrella.
Republicans are almost one and the same, which is why they don't push back against their own party.
Yes. Yeah, I almost think it's like a strength and a weakness simultaneously, that the left is better about eating their own than the right is, because because, I think, and, I'll probably alienate anybody on the right for this, but, I think that the left, those that I know on the left tend to have a lot more integrity for their values, and that integrity for your values can make you very angry when other people aren't having integrity for their values, and I see a lot on the right that just kind of go along with whatever is going on the right, and they don't consider how it aligns with their values, they just go with it, just to speak generally, but, so I think it's a strength and a weakness. We should be careful not to fall in the trap of, oh, this is what the Democrat says. This is blue, so this is what I believe. And actually be willing to think and form our own opinions outside of that. But at the same time, I think that many on the right, or maybe not on the right, but many in the center, that are kind of sick of both sides, I think they have a little bit of a point when they talk about the kind of weaponization of values and empathy that you see on the left. Not, I don't think quite as badly as on the right, but I think both sides tend to have their opinions, and they get mad when others don't hold their values. And the left tends to really not like it when people don't hold all their values. And so, if you're not an enemy of what they're an enemy of, well, then you are just going to be written off.
Yeah.
So
I mean, more
it's
than anything, I think people appreciate when anyone just says, these are my values. I'm not compromising on the following
Mhm.
things. And just admit, look, I don't like working with this person because we
Yeah.
disagree on this. However, there's a bigger enemy to fight, and we can hash out other stuff later. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that is the position we're in, where we don't have the luxury of being able to debate some of the smaller things because there are
Mhm.
existential crises
Yeah,
facing
it's a
so
it's a
many of
very pressing matter. Like, things are happening quick, so we have to, like, move quick, and we don't have time to sit here and, like, sort out all these, even things like abortion. Like, I don't even think nobody's even really talking about abortion right now. It's like these most basic human values of,
The
of
question
like,
is not which week are we going to
yeah,
ban it. It's no
yeah,
one gets it at all, and that's the
mhm,
only option on the table. So you got to
yep.
push back against that. I
Yeah, we
mean,
all just have to kinda come together and figure out how to move forward together, even if we, are different on a lot of other
yeah,
issues.
it's the one thing Republicans and Democrats have in common, which is they all hate Democrats,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, pretty much,
Um,
yeah.